Today we are honored to have Mr. Fred Fleich on our show. He served as Chief of Staff of National Security Council during the first Trump administration, and he is a former CIA analyst and currently serves as Vice Chair of America First Policy Institute, a think tank with significant influence in shaping Trump administration policies. Here's the first question. As you might know, it has been reported that JTBC, a Korean media outlet, misrepresented some of your remarks from the recent interview. In your view, what exactly did they get wrong?
It's a pleasure to be here today. I was happy to respond to a number of media queries about statements I made to several visiting South Korean delegations to AFPI, including a group of 13 National Assembly members. And I made clear in the interview that the point I tried to make was that the perception that President Yoon is being mistreated, that he is being politically persecuted, that he, if he gets an unfair sentence, would be received very badly in the United States and by President Trump, in my opinion. I do not work for the Trump administration. I don't speak for President Trump. And key parts of my interview were omitted, and I think certain words were left out or misinterpreted. So I put a copy of my comments on the internet. I sent a copy to a blogger. I think I sent a copy to you. And I understand there's been a debate in the South Korean media, but from what I've seen, I think the media discussion has favored me. They've recognized that this outlet did indeed leave out certain words and misinterpreted what I said. So I give credit to most of the South Korean media that I think has tried to be fair about this matter.
All right. So what is the key sentence they omitted from your interview?
Well, there were two things. First of all, I said, I think it was, it has to go to, I'm an American living in the United States, and concerning reports about Yoon's condition, I can't say I know with certainty Yoon's condition. I'm a CIA analyst. I use words carefully. So I don't know the veracity of those reports, so I'm not going to say I believe them or I confirm them. I'm simply going to say I'm very concerned about them. But the reporters seem to interpret that as me saying I didn't believe that Yoon was being mistreated, and I didn't say that. I said that these reports are very concerning, and the longer statement I made about these reports being concerning appears to have been left out of the report.
Do you still believe that if the Trump administration sees former President Yoon of Korea as being persecuted or unfairly prosecuted, they would take it very seriously or negatively?
In my opinion, I think that would be a big deal, that, democracies today shouldn't be talking about putting former presidents in prison for life or executing them. I think that is a bit of a problem. I think it would be a huge public relations problem for South Korea, and I understand that probably won't happen, but it alarms me that that's being talked about.
I'm just wondering, other than you, are there more people in Trump's circle would agree on your opinion?
I'll just tell you that there are many in Trump's circle who are watching events in South Korea very closely. And I think that's, look, South Korea is one of our most important allies.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that many of us in Washington are happy that finally the presidential election is over, because President Trump has to have a president to deal with in South Korea. But I'll just tell you that people in Trump's circle are watching South Korea very closely.
As you might know, a far-left group in Korea called Candlelight Action recently accused you of defending President Yoon of Korea, whom they called the insurrectionist or ringleader of insurrection, and they condemned the U.S. for interfering in Korea's internal affairs. Today, they held the protest right in front of U.S. Embassy in Korea. What is your opinion on it?
Pretty funny. Don't these people have anything better to do? I'm just a private citizen in the United States expressing an opinion. I'm an American who cares about South Korea and provided some advice to some South Korean officials and legislators that it would probably be in the interest of South Korea to make sure that the perception of President Yoon's treatment as a positive one. I understand that he's going to go through a legal process for what happened with the martial law incident, but these people who would be launching protests against a private American citizen who made some comments, I just think is really strange.
Yeah, it's very funny, and on behalf of Korea, I'm really sorry for the incident happened today. About hundreds people, radical left, gathered in front of the U.S. embassy in Seoul today at 2 p.m. They were chanting "USA, get off Korea" and blaming President Trump and even you.
It's just shocking. I don't think people in the embassy know who I am, so. I don't know what they're protesting. I mean, isn't there free speech in South Korea? There's free speech in the United States. But look, the issue that people aren't allowed to raise concerns about this. In democracies, we talk about issues like this.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that people are treated fairly and according to the rule of law. And apparently there are far leftists in South Korea who don't believe that you're allowed to talk about this. I think that's unfortunate, but let me also say something else. And I made this clear to the delegation that came to Washington. And maybe my conservative friends in South Korea won't like to hear this, but President Lee has said some good things about a pragmatic foreign policy that'll be pro-U.S., strong against North Korea and China, a strong relationship with Japan. Those promises are why I think President Trump said positive things about President Lee when he announced the new trade deal yesterday.
According to Joseon Ilbo, you said that many in Trump's circle are paying close attention to Korea's last presidential election on June 3rd and what is followed. Is that true? And if so, could you share any specifics?
Well, I think it's a matter of record that there's many people who are followers of President Trump who have been keeping a close eye on the recent presidential election. Some of them have been critical of the outcome. I don't know how many of these people in Trump's orbit the president listens to, but it's pretty clear that there are people in Trump's orbit who've kept a very close eye on it. They're aware of controversy after the election. So I just think that's sort of a matter of record.
The new U.S.-Korea trade deal was just announced today. What is your assessment?
I was very pleased to see that the Trump administration struck this deal with the Lee administration. I'm not surprised because South Korea is such an important strategic ally and trade partner of the United States. It appears to be a very good deal for both sides and allow us to continue our strong friendship and strategic relationship and trading relationship. And the key thing to recognize on President Trump's tariff strategy, he doesn't simply want free trade. He wants trade that is fair. And he believes that trading relations with many states with our country have not been fair for many years, and he's trying to address that issue. The president is trying to push for free and fair trade. He's trying to bring manufacturing jobs back to the United States. But the ultimate goal of President Trump with South Korea is to work with South Korea and Japan to counter the threats from China and North Korea and Russia. That is absolutely essential, and this trade deal is not going to be an obstacle to that goal.
The last question. The U.S. recently imposed sanctions on individuals and even judges in Brazil, accusing them of mistreating former President Bolsonaro. Do you think that the U.S. takes same actions to any individual living in other country having similar charges?
You know, it's interesting when you see what's happening with Bolsonaro. He's a former president who was a conservative who wants to run again. And the president is pretty upset that it appears that the Brazilian government is persecuting him. And President Trump was persecuted as a former president also. That's why I had raised my concern to some visiting South Korean delegations that President Trump may not look kindly if he believes that President Yoon is being persecuted for political reasons. I don't know that for sure. I can't read President Trump's mind. But I think the optics of former presidents being persecuted and given unreasonably harsh political sentences doesn't look good on the international stage and would not be well received by the U.S. and by the Trump administration.
Do you see some parallel among President Trump and former President Bolsonaro and President Yoon of Korea? Because President Trump once was accused of inciting insurrection in the U.S., and Bolsonaro is now accused of inciting insurrection or coup d'etat in Brazil, and same charge for President Yoon of Korea, accused of inciting insurrection in Korea by his martial law. Do you see some parallel among these leaders?
I'm not going to say these cases are the same. I think the perception of a former president in South Korea being persecuted for political reasons will be received badly by many Americans, by President Trump, in my opinion. I appreciate the opportunity to go over it. I did call JTBC fake news because I think they're reporting misrepresented my words and omitted key statements. I'm glad I had a chance to talk about this, but I'm also happy that I've seen press reports that seem pretty accurate on what happened and noted the JTBC statement and misrepresent the context of my remarks.
So you nailed it. It really is fake news. Okay, thank you. So before we get this interview closed, could you give us your closing ment or comments?
Well, I believe that South Korea is one of America's most important and most strategic allies. I know President Trump feels that way also. I think there's going to be a strong relationship between the Lee government and the Trump administration if President Lee sticks to his promises of a pragmatic foreign policy that will have a strong relationship with the U.S. and Japan and will stand up to the threats from North Korea and China and also from Russia, which is becoming an increasing problem in the Asia Pacific because of its strong relationship with North Korea. I think under these circumstances, we can work together strongly as allies as we have for many decades.